Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Jimmy with Justice Trading. Today is Sunday, January 12th, and we're going to go over the weekly outlook for this week for ES and NQ. So, before we really get into it, I first want to look at the economic calendar because that's the most important thing to take a look at to see what our high impact news events are. We do have some pretty big ones. On Tuesday, we have PPI, Wednesday, we have CPI, both pre-market as well as on Thursday we have initial jobless claims. All big three are some pretty big news drivers into the market. It should inject a lot of volatility and a lot of manipulation. So we will look at those events and we will take a look at the technicals on the charts to see how it pairs up. So first thing I'm going to look at is NQ. NQ and ES actually, to be honest, they are very bearish on the higher time frames. So if I right now I'm on the 4 hours, but I do want to take a look at the weekly. We'll start with ES first. We can see on the weekly time frame that we have a lot of these wicks down here. 1, 2, 3, 4. These weekly wicks also correspond to a lot of bounces in the 4 hour time frame. So there's a lot of really good time frame alignment. But you can see that we are actually in this weekly fair value gap where these wicks are. And so this is a really big draw on liquidity. You can see that we made a lower high right here with this wick. And I anticipate that we will, at some point this week, we will reach down to take out 57.98 on ES. You can also see that the volume is pretty bearish. We have a pretty large red volume candle, and also the TTM is also on the downswing as well. So a lot of things line up to be pretty bearish, but high time frame drawn liquidity is definitely to the downside. I will move down to the daily real quick. We can see that we are forming a daily fair value gap that's bearish. That's actually engulfing these two wicks. And then let me move down to the 4 hour. Same scenario. I only placed the 4 hour fair value gap on my chart here because I use the 4 hour. So 4 hour with a time frame alignment goes to 15-minute and 1 minute for my entry. So that's how I usually take my trade. So some people do daily, which goes to daily, 1 hour, and 5 minute, I believe. But I stick on the 4 hour. But I still like to take a look at the higher time frames. So either way, right now we can see that in the Asia session, we're actually selling off still. The draw on liquidity, like I said, 57.98. It's going to be lower. We'll see what happens in the morning. There is a chance that we could pull back, create some sort of divergence or SMT. Because we did take out this wick prior, if we do displace back up, we could revisit 59.20 in this 4 hour fair value gap before heading lower. But really, I think we will probably get some continuation to the downside. So now moving on to NQ. Pretty much the same story. I'll start off on the weekly again. Down here, all the way at 20,305 is actually where that level on ES corresponds to. So if I go back, you can see right here is where we align. So 20,305 has. So what this shows is that we have a lot more weight down on NQ compared to ES. ES is pretty close. So with that said, we could create some sort of SMT. ES has been relatively weaker in the past few trading days, at least at the beginning of the year. But we'll see what happens. So going back to NQ, if I go back to daily, there's not much to see. There's just that 4 hour daily fair value gap that we're forming that I mentioned on ES as well. You can also see that on ES we actually took out that previous wick, but we still did not do that on NQ yet. And then if I go to our 4 hour, same thing, still pretty bearish. We have the pretty obvious fair value gap up here. We have a very small one up here, so I'll probably mark that actually. This is pretty weak because we are actually sandwiched between two green candles, so I'm not too big of a fan of this fair value gap. But let me make this into a bearish fair value gap. But still, draw liquidity is definitely lower. We have a lot of these wicks right here. We have a 4 hour bullish fair value gap down here, but either way, I think draw liquidity is definitely going to be higher. But we'll see how the overnight session plays out. But for the most part, our 4 hour time frame remember it's going to be our bigger time frame and bias. Then with 15 minutes, we'll try to visit to see if there's SMT in these fair value gaps or external range liquidity levels. And then we'll look at our 1 minute for entry in the form of a market structure shifts or a inverse fair value gap once we hit these important big levels or fair value gaps. So that's pretty much it for today and this week. So good luck to everyone. Remember about the high impact news at 8:30 each day, and hope you all end up the week green in the markets. Peace out, y'all.